What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today it is the Week 5 Friday 3-game slate. Actually, a really good 3-game slate, one of the better ones I can remember. But before we get started, hit that thumbs up button if you like the show. Subscribe, that helps us a ton. Thank you if you have done that. And leave a comment, especially if you want to hear about a specific game. We still have our G5 Greasy episode to do on Friday. Got a lot of requests, so thank you if you have left a request. And last, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. We talk sides, we talk totals. All right. First up on this 3-game slate, Florida State hits the road taking on Virginia. The spread in this game is 7 points. The over-under is 59.5. First and foremost, while we're on the pace, I took an over in this game. I took it at 57.5. We actually make this 63.5, so over 59.5 still shows some value. And I want to begin with pacing for both of these teams. Florida State comes in 80th. This is a Gus Malzahn-led offense. And last year with UCF, Gus Malzahn was playing much faster than what we've even seen Florida State do this year. And I think there's a chance that they're faster because they're not beating the snot out of teams every single week. Now, they may beat Virginia and they may play at a slower pace as they've done this year. They're currently coming in with a 27.2 seconds per play. That's a little below average. So maybe they beat the snot out of Virginia again and they continue to play a little below average in pace, but there is a ceiling here if this game is competitive. Meanwhile, on the other side, Virginia comes in 71st in pace. This is a Des Kitching-led offense. We've seen it now. He was the OC last year as well. They're also below last year's pace, 26.6 seconds per play, which is, again, just slightly below average. Last year, they were close to 24 seconds per play, that is. So there is a ceiling pace-wise for both of these teams that we haven't seen just yet, even if we look back as recent as a year ago. But anyway, let's dive into the actual matchup itself between these two teams. With Florida State, they had the awesome win against Alabama in week 1, 97% post-game win expectancy. They win 31-17. Really, it was a clean game across the board. Alabama did miss a field goal and have a pair of turnover on downs. Even if they convert those, Florida State still gets a win in this contest. So maybe it could have been closer. Alabama really did themselves no favors, but that is what it is. From there, Florida State beats up on an FCS East, Texas A&M. Rest in peace, Texas A&M Commerce. They have a week 3 bye. And last week they played Kent State, win 66-10. Very difficult game to evaluate, held out a lot of players. More on that in a second. Meanwhile, Virginia beats Coastal Carolina. They lose to NC State in a crazy shootout that actually ended 35-31. They have a 6% post-game win expectancy. So that wasn't great. Score could have been a little wider in favor of NC State. Then they beat William & Mary and Stanford. So it hasn't been the greatest resume for Virginia either. On the injury front, Florida State is hard to parse. They held a lot of guys out. They let players sit the second half and so forth. I think the most important injuries are still Roydell Williams. He maybe is a blessing in disguise with how well Gavin Sawchuk has played at running back. Otherwise, it looks like a lot of players are returning, like Randy Pittman at tight end. He's expected to return. Awesome player for them. Kevin Wynn might make his season debut on the defensive line. So we'll just have to watch Florida State. I'm expecting them to be fairly healthy. Maybe Shaheem Brown misses again. That's been a position of depth at defensive back. For Virginia, a lot of offensive line injuries. Fortunately, they've had some time to prepare for this. A lot of them occurred in the preseason. Wallace Unamba, I'm not sure if he plays. And then their running back, Noah Vaughn, has an ankle sprain. On the Florida State offense, looked great against Alabama. They won in the trenches, which is important because it's a brand new offense almost entirely. They go out, hire Malzahn, of course, and he changes the player personnel almost down to every single position, brings in Castellanos from Boston College. And so far, 71% completion is awesome. 15.6 yards per attempt, largely driven by those low-level opponents. We know he's mobile, 5.1 yards per carry. The pressure rate is 30%. And Castellanos did bang up his ankle in the most recent game, so that's kind of something to monitor, but it really looked precautionary more than anything else. But almost everything is upgraded for Florida State. The skill position players are much better. Micah Danzy actually leads the team in rushing, which is insane. He has like 5 carries, but he's been incredibly efficient. He is more of your Swiss Army knife player who can catch passes and take screens, maybe do some stuff around the edge on reverses, carries out of the backfield. But Gavin Sawchuk has been an upgrade on the run game, 6.4 yards per carry for the Oklahoma transfer. Deuce Robinson and Squirrel White, they haven't operated in a voluminous role, but they haven't needed to. We've seen the flashes that you'd want out of your USC and Tennessee transfers. And Randy Pittman returning, underrated blocker for him at tight end. It's a great group of skill position players. The offensive line was expected to be below average coming into the season. Largely transfers. Luke Petitbon from Wake Forest, Micah Pettis from Ole Miss, Adrian Medley, UCF, Gunnar Hansen from Vanderbilt. They're all starting. And they've yet to face a pass rush ranked higher than 84th. More of an indictment on Alabama than anything else. But they've held up. They've kind of done a little more than we expected to so far. So this is a pretty decent Florida State offensive line. They run a scheme. Obviously, run blocking should be a little better for them. They come in 94th there, 7th in pass blocking. You're looking at an aggregate between the two. But that's a concern for me. And then Virginia's defense. What do we expect them to do against this Florida State offense? I would argue not that much. They look like a team that might be in a lot of shootouts this year. They currently come in 35th in total defense. I think that is propped up by the Coastal Carolinas of the world that they've faced so far. They allowed 8.2 yards per attempt to CJ Bailey, 6.2 yards per carry to that NC State offense. We thought this was going to be an improved Virginia defense, but still a little weak in the secondary. And honestly, I'm not even sure about their defensive line. Because of some injuries, they've had to start some low-level transfers. Kazim Morris from Elon. Fisher Kamak is from UNLV. They're consistently playing 7 DBs right now, too. Some of those transfers are low-level. Jason Prevard from Morgan State. Donovan Platt from Army. Jordan Robinson from Cincinnati. And again, they've been hurt. Not all these guys would be starting, but they've had to so far. Maybe we could see some changes as players get a little healthier for this Virginia team. But regardless, you will be starting someone low-level that probably is not at the same talent level as the opposite player on the Florida State side. So that's a concern for me. The only real concern I have with the Florida State offense, we've seen Castellanos play 1 good game in 2 years, maybe 2 if you include Duquesne last year when he was with Boston College. So you're really putting, if you love Florida State, the offense that is, you're putting a lot of stock in the Alabama game. Now that is an awesome data point. Coming into the year, we had Alabama as the #1 defense. Castellanos shredded them. But what about every other game that Castellanos has played the last 2 years? It's just a question. I don't have the answer. On the other side, Chandler Morris, he's been awesome for Virginia. 71% completion, 8.8 yards per attempt, 4 big-time throws, 5 turnover-worthy plays. He's up to 9.4 yards per carry without taking a sack. Now, this is by far their most difficult opponent. Florida State put them in a different class compared to even NC State. Skill position players are a big question for me. They've had a good run out so far. The running backs, Jamari Taylor, he's an FCS guy. Harrison Whaley, Noah Vaughn, who's banged up. They've all been pretty good. Their receivers are Trell Harris, Cameron Ross, and Jamal Edrin. Every one of those guys is a G5 transfer. So it's just not the most talented group on paper. Trell Harris is from Kent State. Ross is from James Madison. Edrin's bounced all over the place, but formerly FAU and Purdue. They're just definitely not as talented as the Florida State guys. And the O-line, this was expected to be a strong unit, the strength of the Virginia offense. They've just been so injured. So what do we get out of this team? They definitely have some weak links now. Jack Whitmer has been a problem for this team. And they haven't faced a lot of good pass rushes. NC State's okay, but then their other 2 opponents, at least of FBS level, were outside the top 80. So it's still a relatively untested offensive line as well. On the Florida State defense, a completely read-made unit for the most part. They were expected to take a slight step back, but I will admit there's a lot of volatility in the transfer projections. The strength looked like it was in the secondary. That is good when you match up against Virginia, who likes to throw the ball. The linebackers have been a little bit of a problem. I've been really impressed with their run defense. Daryl Jackson, Daniel Lyons, Mandrell Desir have been a lot better than I expected. And for some of the weaknesses in the secondary, potential holes, Jabril Rawls has been awesome for this team. And I'm not sure the Virginia offense can really take advantage of this consistently enough to win the game. I do think they can put some points up, especially this is an offense, if they need to play in garbage time, that is built to succeed. And honestly, a lot of the Alabama wounds were self-inflicted with Ty Simpson just missing players and Ryan Williams dropping balls. They could have allowed more points to Alabama if it came down to it. So with pacing lining up, with both offenses projected to have some success, mainly Florida State, we took an over. I think the current number, 59.5, is still fine. We show a little value on the Virginia side. Again, that is mainly just the sample with Florida is really small. It's hard to come into a year with all of these transfers and project this team, especially when players like Castellanos have a pretty questionable sample. One good game is what you're relying on with him. But rather than a side, we will take Virginia in the over. Or excuse me, we will take the over in the Virginia game. I would lean Virginia if you forced me to pick. I do not like a side in the game. All right. TCU, Arizona State. TCU hits the road. They are a 3-point underdog. Arizona State the favorite. The total is 55. In this game, total seems a little low to me, but pacing, Arizona State's going to play slow. TCU will play fast. I think both of those teams could regress a little bit. TCU towards a faster pace, Arizona State towards a slower. Pass rate should be about what we've seen for both teams. Perhaps TCU could increase that a little bit. They've been very pass heavy in the past. But so far, TCU beat up on North Carolina. They had 2 defensive scores in that game after it looked like North Carolina was going to get out to an awesome start after that first drive, but completely collapsed. Since then, TCU beat Abilene Christian, beat SMU 35-24 in their last game, 73% post-game win expectancy. The only real issue I had in the game is it looks like there were just a couple mental lapses from SMU, like that Eric McAllister touchdown. But Josh Hoover had an excellent game, 9.5 yards per attempt there. It was just a solid overall performance where TCU made more mistakes, and that's what cost them the game. Arizona State, meanwhile, they beat Northern Arizona, lost to Mississippi State by 4 points. Could have been worse. They only had a 12% post-game win expectancy. Very clearly lost yards per play, had 2 turnovers in the game, turnover on downs. Since that game, they beat Texas State. They beat Baylor. The Baylor game, they win by 3 with a 31% post-game win expectancy. They lost yards per play. The difference in the game was Baylor had 3 turnovers in their own territory, and that resulted in 9 Arizona State points. So a pretty questionable body of work for Arizona State right now. This was expected as far as regression candidates go, they were right at the top. But injury-wise, TCU's Kavorian Barnes is not looking likely to play. Avery Helm as well at corner. For Arizona State, Xavier Alford at defensive back and Jalen Moss at wide receiver are the main injuries you need to know about. On the player personnel side with TCU, we have Josh Hoover, excellent quarterback, 68% completion. He's a veteran, currently at 9.7 yards per attempt. Only 3 turnover-worthy plays. He's only taken 2 sacks. Everything's looked great for Hoover. Receivers, I argued, maybe could take a step back, just so many players drafted. But it looks like Eric McAllister and Jordan Dwyer are more than up for filling in for Besh and Savion Williams and all the players they lost. So it's been good for TCU in the past game. Kavorian Barnes is at 7.4 yards per carry. His health is a question, so you might have to turn to Payne and Battle. I think they're okay in a rotation. Definitely not as good as Barnes, but still, the offensive line has done a better job than I thought. Honestly, we had this as a major concern coming into the year, largely because of Ben Taylor Whitfield at tackle. He'd been a turnstile. He's currently playing above average. And a lot of NFL players, or NFL scouts, I should say, he's in mock drafts and stuff, probably because of traits. So it's good to see him actually live up to some of that expectation. Ryan Hughes is really the only weakest link here. I will say they are a little more tested than other teams do. They have faced 2 top 50 defensive lines. So that's some positive feedback for this offensive line that I thought was going to be a question coming into the year. Overall, this leads to an offense that's pretty put together. Arizona State's defense had a lot of questions on this team coming into the year. They did return a lot of starters, which is kind of the hole in the national media's analysis. They think returning starters means national championship. see Clemson, see Illinois, see Arizona State. They've played only one top 60 offense. They're going to get another one here. Against the last top 60 offense they faced, they allowed 8.5 yards per attempt to Blake Shapen. They did do a good job against Sawyer Robertson. The Blake Shapen Mississippi State offense is right around the top 60. Baylor, obviously, the one inside the top 60. But they allowed 4.7 yards per carry to Baylor, so it wasn't all roses. This was expected to be an average defense coming into the year. And that's basically what we've got. The weakness has been on the defensive line. I will say, I think if they just trim some of the fat here, it could be better. 82nd in run defense, 75th in pass rush. They played a pretty gnarly rotation. Players like Blazin Longo Wong, Ramar Williams, they've been awful when they're on the field. And this Arizona State defense has been banged up at times. We haven't really seen Swanson play yet. There are a few other guys that have just kind of dipped their toes in. So there is an upside for this defensive line to be much better. But every other position group has a clear weakness so far. Jordan Crook's been the better linebacker, but there's some weaknesses there. Keith Abney's been an awesome corner, but there's weaknesses in the secondary. Essentially, for all of the good players like Crook and Abney, there is a weakness, a counterpart that has caused problems at those positions. TCU will stretch you, especially in the pass game. With really just Abney being a stud you fear, you should be able to pick that defense apart in other spots. For Arizona State, Sam Leavitt has regressed. 60% completion percentage, 6.3 yards per attempt. He already has 6 turnover-worthy plays, which have been converted into 3 interceptions. Still very mobile, 5.2 yards per carry, but he's taken 8 sacks on a 29% pressure rate. And a 19.5% pressure to sack ratio is not ideal either. Neither is a 9% drop rate from your pass catchers, which is part of the problem with Arizona State. Yeah, they return a lot of starters, but do you return the important ones? Tyson is important, but is there anything around him? And at receiver, there's not. Jordan Tyson is already up to 357 yards. They need to have everything flow through him because you have, they don't really even have a wide receiver 2 right now. You're rotating between 12 personnel and playing a walk-on receiver, Derek Isubio. I'm confused why Jaron Hamilton hasn't gotten on the field. Whatever they decide to do, whether it's that originally in week 1, they tried to play Isubio, went horribly. Then they tried to play 12 personnel for 2 straight weeks. That didn't go really well either. So they're kind of fishing for something outside of Tyson in the passing game and just haven't found it. In the run game, this has been strong. Kyson Brown's been hurt, but when he went down, Raleek Brown burst onto the scene. 6.6 yards per carry for him. Kanye Udo, the Army transfer, has been fine in relief. So that's all been good. The run game has been solid. Obviously, Leavitt plays a part in that, but the pass game is a complete disaster. The offensive line has been imbalanced. They're 19th in pass blocking, 87th in run blocking. We thought this was going to be a below average offensive line in the Big 12, which has mostly been the case. And they also haven't faced any good defensive lines. The best defensive line Arizona State has faced is Mississippi State. They come in 58th in run defense and 102nd in pass rush. So this is still a concerning unit. Can TCU take advantage of this? I think so, but it's hard to say. They played one solid offense in SMU. They held them 7.6 yards per attempt for Jennings, 3.6 yards per carry for the backs. We did think TCU was going to have a good defense. And again, there's basically 2 teams investing in talent in the Big 12 right now, at least towards the top. TCU is the best recruiting team by a mile. Texas Tech is the best transfer team. So TCU has a lot of 4 stars, 5 stars, not really 5s, but a lot of 4 stars on the defense and across the board. That's how you get to the second-ranked Big 12 defense. They are better in the back 7. That could be a problem against this rushing attack. And Zach Chapman's been hurt. He's definitely expected to return, but at what capacity? Defensive lineman off the edge. And the defense does have a ceiling. They do have younger 4 stars that are playing. Chapman's one. Marcus Deal is another. So that defensive line could be a little better than what we're expecting. The back end, I think you know what you're getting. Bud Clark is a stud at safety. Jamel Johnson. Nnamdi Obiazor, I think is how you say that. The Cal transfer originally. He plays linebacker. So it's a quality defense. It's not going to come easy for Arizona State by any means, especially when you can sort of key on the run game at this point. In this game, you have Arizona State at home. That's worth about 3 points. So what this line is telling us, this should be about a pick 'em if it were played at a neutral venue. We just flat out disagree with that. We had TCU as a better team power ranking wise coming into the season. None of the results so far have changed that for us. Mississippi State is a good team, but that loss should have been wider. And then beating SMU, that's a quality win for this TCU team. There really hasn't been a data point for either team, which has shifted us off our priors. We took a TCU plus a 3. That's the number I need. Would love a 3.5, but I doubt it gets there. As soon as this touched 3, we saw money come in on TCU. So that is what we are going to side with, TCU plus a 3. As far as the total goes, 55. We make this about 56.5, a little closer towards the 60. So some value on the over, but this is volatile. You could see Arizona State, like they're currently at 28 seconds per play. I wouldn't be surprised if they like hit 30 in certain games. Maybe those are in games they play from ahead. So maybe an over makes some sense here, but definitely prefer the TCU side. Last up, Houston, Oregon State. Kind of an ugly game to close things out, but maybe I can talk you into watching this game on the West Coast. 13.5 point spread in favor of the road team. Oregon's 0-4, of course. Total's 47. So Houston so far, we saw them beat Stephen F. Austin, saw them beat Rice, and saw them beat Colorado, 36-20, 91% post-game win expectancy. That was the dumb Ryan Staub game, so Colorado willingly started a third-string quarterback. I don't really know if we can take much away from that game. As far as Oregon State, they lost to Cal, got blown out, lost to Fresno State, got blown out, lost to Texas Tech, and Oregon got blown out. They've gotten blown out in every single game this year. All right, injury-wise, Houston actually has a lot of problems on the offensive line. I think some of these players will be back, but just watch carefully. David Ndukwe is not going to be back. He's out, but Mackenzie Agnello, Dalton Merriman, Jason Brooks, they have all been injured to some degree. The bye should have helped them. Oregon State has a lot of injuries as well. People will say their O-line is hurt. They're actually getting a lot healthier on the O-line, but their defense is a disaster. Coming into the season, we expected TJ Crandall, Noble Thomas, Exodus Ayers, and Tyrese Ivy to all start or play a role. None of them have been playing. They lost Rajon Davis at linebacker. I don't think he returns. Kai Wallen, who's a linebacker edge hybrid, he hasn't been playing. The defense is a mess. So can Houston take advantage of this with Connor Wegman? To be honest, he's been a disappointment. 63% completion percentage, 8 yards per attempt. He's honestly like extending plays through his legs. 4.2 yards per carry for him, but he definitely has not lived up to 5-star expectation. He was a 5-star recruit. Only taken 5 sacks. The pressure rate has been 48%. That's partially on him. I'm still waiting to see the Wegman ceiling because right now he's kind of just a fancy game manager, which fortunately Houston, very well-constructed team, well-constructed offense. They don't really need him to do much more than that, and they probably won't in this game. His pass catchers have been a little above average, as has the run game. Dean Connors, the Rice transfer, has been solid, 5.4 yards per carry. We know he can catch the ball. Stephen Johnson, 191 yards. He's been your big play contributor, and Tanner Koziel at tight end has been the underneath operator. The O-line is very weird. They're 136th in pass blocking, dead last, but 28th in run blocking. This team wants to run the ball, so better to be good at what you're trying to do. We thought this was going to be a below average to average offensive line, and injuries have definitely played a part on this. If we see these injuries take a turn for the worst, let's say Agnello's out and Merriman's out, like this is an awful offensive line. Those guys need to play. The backups are not quality players. So if they're in there, they shouldn't be a bad unit, and they face some decent offense or defensive lines. Like Colorado's a decent defensive line. Rice isn't bad either for a G5 team. They just can't pass protect. And we'll see what they can do here. The real question is, can Oregon State take advantage of this? I think the answer is no. They're 133rd in pass rush, 98th in run defense, very, very hurt on defense. And what was the expectation coming into the year? We thought this defense was going to be atrocious. They returned 5 starters and a lot of rotational players, but a lot of them are just hurt now, especially those defensive backs. Those are the players you were returning. That was supposed to be the strength. They're all hurt. I will say the defense could be better just because they've now faced back-to-back top 10 offenses with Texas Tech and Oregon, but they did struggle against Cal. I mean, really the only lone bright spot for the defense has been Jaheim Patterson. Maybe they're a little better just based on the opponents they face, but I don't really see this being a unit that offers a lot of resistance to Houston. Meanwhile, on the other side, you have Malik Murphy, 57% completion, 6.7 yards per attempt, 8 big-time throws, 6 turnover-worthy plays, being converted at a really high rate, 5 interceptions for him. We know he's not a runner. 24.5% pressure rate has led to 6 sacks. That's not ideal. His pass catchers have a near 10% drop rate. It's all been a mess for Oregon State. But there's only one way for this to go, and I think that's up. Malik Murphy's been a decent passer through his career. I wouldn't say he's a difference maker, but he can game manage you to wins if everything else is in place. I'm just not sure it is. The run game has been pathetic. Anthony Hankerson's at 3.5 yards per carry. He's regressed significantly, partially because the O-line has been a disaster. They've battled a lot of injuries. Some of those guys are back, like Jacob Strand is back. They still haven't found a tackle opposite him, and the schedule's been brutal, so you face a lot of good pass rushes. You know, like David Bailey comes in there. You have to go up against Mateo Ulagalale. Oregon State's not that kind of team. They're just not going to be able to compete with those guys. The pass catchers have been decent for Oregon State. We know they want to throw the ball. Trent Walker has been fine for this team, 302 yards. Taz Reddix has actually been decent too, 240. It's just the pass protection's been so poor that you can really only throw the ball underneath. Can the Houston defense take advantage of this? I think the answer is probably yes. The D-line has been okay. Their strength is against the run. They're actually 101st in pass rush, so haven't quite been getting a lot of pressure against opposing signal callers. This is weird because coming into the year, we thought they were going to be better on the defensive line and weak in the secondary. They currently come in third in total coverage efficiency, just pass coverage. I will say I think this is boosted by facing a third-string Colorado quarterback and an option offense in Rice. But the defensive line looks solid. Like Khalil Laufau has been good. Carlos Allen's been good. I need to give some credit to the DBs, Latrell McCutcheon and Will James. They've been good too. I just think this unit is pretty untested because of the offenses they face on the other side. With the strength in the run game, it does raise some questions. I think the secondary is probably the weakest point. Can Malik Murphy take advantage of this? Again, I think the D-line is good, so 101st pass rush. Houston's better than that. The run defense, 26. That's about where we expect them. It's going to be tough sailing for Oregon State the whole way in this game. Now, 13.5 points is a lot on the road, especially considering what Oregon has faced so far this year. We actually show some value on the Oregon State side. We make this closer to a touchdown. I'm not going to lie to you, I just can't get there. The optics on this Oregon State team are awful. They could completely implode. Houston, I think, has a ceiling that they haven't shown. Again, they're very talented, especially a quarterback, just hasn't come together. If you wanted to take something in the total game, an over could be interesting. It's just pacing's not really in your favor either. Oregon State is 97th. I think the only reason they're that fast is because they've been getting blown out in games. There's a chance they come in at like 30 seconds per play. Right now they're at 28. Houston is right around average to slightly below average. They're 74th. But I don't feel good about that. If they're winning this game by 2 touchdowns, they could slow significantly as well. That Houston team is already 126th in pass rate. We know they're comfortable just slamming the ball into the back of the O-line. This will be just a pure stay away from me. If you really, really want to take something in the game, you could dabble with Oregon State. That's going to be a straight up pass. But that will do it. Thank you guys for watching. If you have a request, please leave it below. Otherwise, we'll be back again tomorrow for all the G5 games, the greasy games. Until then, good luck. We'll see you later.